Let's talk about my childhood. I went to a private Catholic school in Prince George's County, and I started going to this school when I was in pre-K. It was one of those schools that extended from preschool to middle school, and then once you reached the end of middle school, you had to go to a high school somewhere. Okay, but so I went to the same school from pre-K all the way up until pretty much just about the end of middle school. What really kind of brought this back up is that I haven't been to a church in a really long time. And yesterday I was sort of watching this church service on television because I was visiting my grandmother, and really she was watching it, but I was like there spending time with her. So I ended up watching it too. Even though I was kind of on my laptop, it still was like in my environment, and it triggered me a little bit, if I'm being honest. Like it made me go back. Whoa, big truck. Gonna let him roar his way out of here. Okay. It really brought me to a time in my life where I felt like I had absolutely no real guidance. And it was a very, very lonely time in my life also. I had to deal with a lot of things by myself when I was a little girl. And like a lot of like traumatizing things as well, because even though it was a Catholic school, it was still in Prince George's County, Maryland. So just in general, like the culture in PG County is, you will not ever find any other place like PG County. Straight up, like it just like I was just taken all the way back to that time of my life, and how I felt so alone and like neglected as a little girl. Because I remember I hadn't ever had anyone tell me about boys, like really at all. Mind you, some people may think that this is TMI, but I think that it is just life. It's just nature. I started my menstrual very, 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 very young. I was 9 years old. 9 years old. And I remember I had just started the 4th grade. Yep. I just started the 4th grade, and I'm already going through this like drastic change in my body. When you're a 9-year-old girl and you haven't been taught anything about your body that like tells you how it is going to grow, how it is going to develop, and like just anything that will keep you educated about the way nature will literally, like, you will be a force of nature. And I didn't have any of that. Like, I kind of want to tell the story, if I'm being honest. I remember sleeping on the couch. Like, I was sleeping on the couch in the apartment that we were living in, because I think I was watching television or something, and so I never made it back to my bedroom. But I remember I was sleeping on the couch, and I remember waking up and like feeling okay, this wait, okay, hold on, my brain is going all over the place. Just a disclaimer, this story is gonna be very, very cutthroat. Like, I'm not gonna hold back any details, so if you aren't somebody that is comfortable with like too much information, then you might want to either brace yourself or maybe, I don't know, rethink listening to this. But anyway, so going back to it, right? 9-year-old girl, right? I remember maybe like a week or 2 weeks, or I don't know how long before I had actually started my menstrual cycle, that I started experiencing this sort of symptoms of it. And I just remember this one night, bro. I had the worst pain in my life, and literally as this 9-year-old little girl, I could have swore it was my time to go. Like, I just knew, I knew for a fact. I'm like, yeah, this is it, because I was the only one who was awake. Well, I was awake, but like literally my parents were in the other room getting jiggy with it. So I'm sitting on my bed in pain, it literally, and my little sister is asleep next to me, and I'm crying. I'm in agony. Like, this pain is so severe, it literally feels like somebody is taking a knife and just stabbing me in my stomach, but like, I'm not ever dying. I'm just feeling the pain over and over and over again, and it literally felt like death was draining the life from me as I was just laying there on my bed. And I just swear that I was not going to make it to the morning, but I didn't say anything. Like, I kept quiet, and I feel like that within itself was also a bit of a traumatizing experience, that like I felt like I couldn't get up and tell someone, like, hey, I'm fucking dying and I don't know what's happening to me. And so that happened, and then like a period of time went where I was fine, and I just thought, okay, maybe I just like, I don't know what was going on, but I just put it at the back of my head until that day where I said, like, I was sleeping on the couch, right? And I was watching movies, and I fell asleep on the couch, and I woke up, and I remember feeling like wet, but I was like a little bit confused. So I got up, and we had this walk-in closet in the room that my sister and I were sharing. We had this walk-in closet, and I remember taking off my panties and like looking at them and being like, oh my God, yep, this is death. This is death. This is my end. All you see is literally red. I'm trying to not be as just like gruesome and kind of gory with it, but I mean, I'm 9 years old, bro, and I have on my panties. I take them off and look at them, and I see fucking blood. I literally, it was a Carrie moment. Oh my gosh, hold on, wait, I didn't even, hold on, wait. Hold on. Yo, no wonder. Oh my gosh. Okay, listen. I love Carrie, but when I'm watching it, it hits too fucking close to home for some fucking reason. And I could never pinpoint it. I could never understand why, like, her experiences and her relationship with, like, her mother and her environment triggered me so fucking bad. And like, I would, even though I love the fucking art, it's so art, I sometimes, it feels like self-torture watching it, because it feels like I'm looking at like a time that I've had, or an experience that I've had, experiences that I've had in my life, like literally looking at a version of myself that I had to go through. And seeing this like movie explain it, whoa, I'm sorry, my brain just kind of like completely burst into like flames right there, because I didn't ever put those two together, and now I can completely understand why Carrie hits so close to home, like the movie and everything that happens within it. Oh my gosh, it explains it. I feel like now I like have to try to actually watch it again, because the last time that I was watching it, I literally had to turn it off because it was just too close to home. So now I'm thinking about it. Bro, I had a huge freaking Carrie moment, except she was in high school, I think, or yeah, like I think she was in high school. And I was barely leaving, like barely in elementary. Barely. I was literally 9 years old, okay? And I remember having that freaking Carrie moment and being like, what's happening to me? But like inside. And then even then, like when I think about that moment where I did see like the blood in my panties, I was like, yo, still didn't feel like I could say anything. I like remember like I'm saying like a lot because I was so the external experience that Carrie was having when she like started seeing the blood and she started like like melting low-key, having this literally psychotic breakdown, this mental emotional breakdown. That external experience what was happening to me inside though, like that, but internally where no one else could see. And I remember holding them in my hands and pacing back and forth and being like, oh my gosh, like, should I say something to my mother or should I not? Should I say something? Should I not? And I'm having this internal dialogue with myself as a 9-year-old girl about whether I should tell my mother that I started my menstrual cycle, because I'm afraid that she is going to get mad at me. One, I am afraid that she's going to be angry at me and say that I did something to make this happen, or that I'm fucking dying. One of the two. Like, this is all that is going in my head. So I'm literally going through this angel and devil on my shoulder saying, no, don't tell her, like, don't tell her, just put on a new pair and just going about your day. But literally that was faulty within itself, because putting on the freaking new pair, just legitimately, I'm still fucking bleeding. So that didn't work. And that whole devil part of me that was like, don't tell her because she's gonna get mad, or don't tell her because you're gonna fucking die or something. And then there's the angel part of me that is like, well, Amina, you don't really know what's going on, and if you aren't 100% sure why there's blood in your panties, like blood, bro, like blood, you need to say something, because like you don't know what is going on. So I'm pacing back and forth, and I am like, okay, I'm gonna tell her, and then I go back and I'm like, no, and then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna tell her, and I'm like, no, and I mind you, like, I swear I was probably standing in my walk-in closet pacing back and forth with my menstrual freaking blood just in my hand and everywhere, and just well, it wasn't everywhere, but like it was in my panties. And I'm walking back and forth trying to figure out, okay, like, what do I do? So finally I get up the guts, and she's in the bathroom and she's like brushing her teeth, right? And I take the panties. I'm holding the panties, the bloody panties in my hand, and I walk into the freaking bathroom while she's brushing her teeth, and I literally just put them in her face. Well, I don't put them in her face, but I'm 9. I'm literally 9 years old. So I like show her the panties, and I'm like, I woke up and this was in my panties. Like, I'm trying to make myself seem as innocent as possible, because I don't know how she's gonna react, and like I don't know what this means. I'm like so afraid. I'm like, am I pregnant? Am I this? Am I that? Like, what is going on with me? Like, mind you, that is how you know I was a very, 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 very uneducated 9-year-old, is that I thought me getting my period meant I was pregnant. And I was afraid that she was gonna think I was pregnant. And that's the thing, I wasn't even having sex. Like, I literally have been completely quiet and very like self-contained. That's not really the word I'm looking for. Self-conscious, if I'm being honest, that's the word that I'm looking for. Very, very shy and closed to myself. Like I said, I didn't know anything about boys, and I was afraid to talk to them. I was afraid, like fear. I had a fear that if I even waved hi to a boy on the playground, or I was friends with him, that my mother would find out and she would like fucking end my life. Like, I was so afraid that I didn't speak to any boys, even if I thought that they were cute. So you can only imagine the fear that is actually like happening while I'm finding this menstrual blood in my panties and thinking that I'm pregnant and fearing that my mom is going to think that I'm having sex with a boy. Dude, what the bro, I swear, like, whoever made Carrie is like, oh wait, no, that's Stephen King. So right, okay, so back to the story. I'm going a little bit off track. So I show her the panties, right? And I'm like, hey, like, I woke up and this is in my panties. Innocent and 9-year-old. And she literally, I told you she's brushing her teeth. She spits. Like, she legit does a spit take, bro. She spits. And I'm like confused at the reaction, because I think it took her back. Like, I feel like I'm gonna guess she didn't expect for me to start my menstrual period like so early. And so I could tell that she didn't really know how to respond, that it kind of caught her by surprise, and all she could do was just like do a spit take. And then I remember her being like, okay, and then handing me a pad. And I remember I was sitting on my bed and she came and she sat, and I lie to you not, yo. I lied to you not. This is something that I feel like really, really, really scarred me a little bit. Like, I guess she was trying to give me the conversation of like, what did this mean? But I swear to you, the only thing I can remember her saying, that like, this is how she broke it down to me. Okay, I'm sitting on my bed, I'm 9 years old, right? She comes and she sits next to me, or maybe she's standing, one of the two. Maybe I wanted her to be sitting, so like maybe that's how the memory goes. But either way, all I remember is her voice verbatim, like, and her saying that I have to wash 2 or 3 times a day, and like change my pad frequently. And then I like her reasoning, the reason why, or her explanation for my menstrual cycle was that if I do anything with a boy, I will get pregnant now. And that was all that I got. That was, for a very, very long time in my life, that was all that I knew about my menstrual cycle. That was all that I knew was happening to my body. I didn't know anything about the symptoms or the cramps or the mood swings or what is actually happening to me, why I can get pregnant now and not just if I do anything with a boy. Because if I'm being honest, we didn't even have that talk. What exactly am I going to be doing with a boy that could get me pregnant? Like, so I feel like gifted with education on myself as a young girl. And because I always felt so sheltered and afraid of like having any kind of social experiences, having any social relationships, I feel like that encouraged my behaviors in social kind of environments to go to the extremes. And I remember it was just around this time that like boys for some reason started to take a liking to me. And I didn't even put those pieces together until right now, really, is that it wasn't until I started my menstrual cycle that for some reason boys started seeing me more. Like, they started actually gravitating towards me. And I remember the first time I had ever got a note in class. I was in the 4th grade, right? And this is where my life, my experience as a child and my relationship with like my generation and just social environments, social connections, and even romantic connections, and just like how all of that contributes to my self-image, and then also simultaneously going to a Catholic school where all of this is kind of taking place, just really, really fucking with my head, man. So I remember the first time I had ever got passed a note. I was in Spanish class, still in 4th grade, 9-year-old, and it was this guy who was in a grade above me. So no, 2 grades. He was in the 6th grade, I was in the 4th grade. And I remember like them passing, like he passed me a note when our classes were like exchanging. And I think on the note it said like, do you like me? Or it said I like you, or it said something like about us being boyfriend girlfriend. I don't know, it said something along those lines, and I remember being so excited. I remember feeling like I had won the fucking lottery. And mind you, I didn't even really have a crush on him, but it was just like, for the first time I'm experiencing some kind of male attention, especially from someone who is like my age group and in my generation. And not even to just talk about a lot of the kind of traumatic a lot of the trauma that comes from the fact that I had always looked older than I was as a little girl. So I would get a lot of attention from older men as well. And I'm going to talk about that later, and how that kind of contributes to the way that I see my self-worth today, and how it has impacted the way that I express my femininity. But yeah, it was like for the first time I hadn't ever experienced really getting any direct and like assertive attention from a boy at that age. And I couldn't even tell my mom. Like I feel like if I had told her, I feel it probably would have done worse than any good, because I think her perspective on it probably wouldn't have been enlightening. But I also feel as though not enlightening like to devalue her intelligence, but more so that I feel like it wouldn't have created a safe space for me to talk about it. It would have been a very biased and very like strict sort of conversation that wouldn't have actually enlightened me on what getting attention from a male means, or what does it mean when we have a relationship, or we get together, or we're communicating, or any of those things, right? So I felt like I couldn't talk to her about it, and I didn't really have anyone, any like trusted adult, any trusted guide who was much more mature and wise that I felt like I could talk to about these things. Like I felt so completely alone, man, at that time in my life. And when I think back to that little girl, I just wish that she was seen as innocent, and she was also seen as someone who was worth checking up on, like someone who actually sat down and was like, hey, like what happened at school today? Hey, like how are you? Is there something that happened at school? Is there anything that happened in your day, right, that you want to talk about? I think just having those conversations said to me would have maybe helped me not feel so afraid. And I think it would have prevented me from putting myself in situations where I'm being manipulated. And because that one little experience of him giving me that note created a chain of events, and especially because I was so excited and I didn't understand that like literally he was just being a little boy, and that it wasn't even about him liking me or really thinking that I'm cute, but that the fact that like he was a little boy. And later on down the line I learned that for some reason his whole entire intention for going into it was that he wanted me to give him oral sex. And so mind you, he's older than me. He's in the 6th grade and I'm in the 4th grade. I'm 9 years old. He's like 12 or something. And I remember we were like chatting on Uvu. Yo! Uvu. OOVOO. Oh, like Uvu was legitimately like the GOAT at that time. I've never really used Skype, if I'm being honest, so I don't really know what Skype is like, but I know Uvu was the shiznit for real. But I remember we were like texting one day, and I remember like him saying like, meet me in the music room. Mind you, I never kissed a boy. I like literally, I did not have my first kiss until I was 16 years old, until I literally reached the 10th grade. Until I reached my sophomore year in high school, I did not kiss a boy on the lips, a male on the lips, like dead ass. So having this experience, and it's just okay. So there was this one day, and like, mind you, we hadn't ever even did anything. It was just like, oh, people would say that they talk. Like at that time, it was like if you talked to somebody, y'all were seen to be like in a relationship, but like not really. It was more like flirtatious, where y'all would like flirt, and people saw that as y'all having some kind of connection or whatever, or being like partners, I guess. So I remember we really didn't have that many interactions outside of messaging or just like talking and seeing each other, but there wasn't really any physical affection or anything that like really put into concrete that we were in a romantic connection. Mind you, I'm a 9-year-old girl, he's a 12-year-old little boy, and I remember him like messaging me and being like, hey, like, let's go to the music room upstairs, because after school. And so the way that the school was set up was there were these steps kind of on the side of the school, inside though, like where you could go up the steps, and then it would go into this room where there was like a piano and there was seats, and that's where we would learn all of our church music, our like choir music, that when we had mass on Mondays, we would know the songs that were going to be sung at church. And so, wow, I had never talked about this part of my life before. This is so freeing. Anyway, so yeah, he texted me and he was like, yeah, let's go up to the music room. And I think like we had discussed what we were gonna do, and I think we had planned to kiss. Like I think that was a plan, but when we got up there, that never happened. Literally, like, we just sat or just stood, but we didn't ever actually like do anything. We didn't ever actually touch, like. And so after that, we just spent time together. That's like literally, we spent time alone. Just that by itself. We spent time alone. And he knows that nothing happened. I know that nothing happened. But somehow, a rumor gets started that I gave him oral sex upstairs in the music room. And the whole school is now looking at me like I did that. And people are talking about me. And I come to find out that he's the one who started the rumor. It is him. It was him who literally sat in a room with me, and we barely touched at all, barely even spoke. And then goes to his friends and tells his friends, like, yeah, she gave me oral sex. Like, you fucking manipulator. And then, like, that's what I'm saying. I feel like I shouldn't have even trusted him enough to be up there with him alone, because I did not know anything about boys. I was just literally like everything that he suggested to me, I just went with, because I was just excited that I was getting some kind of attention from someone of my age in a more romantic way, if that made sense. And that it made me feel something. I don't know. Like, I was just happy that I was being seen, I guess, you know. That is just like, whoa. So this rumor starts happening, and the girls in my school start treating me differently. They start talking about me, and I'm pretty sure that my teacher had found out, because I remember him like always asking me if I'm okay, and kind of like, I remember he gave me this pep talk one time that was sort of like, be careful type of thing, with like who you're hanging around or something like that. I don't know, but mind you, I'm 9 years old, and this rumor starts going around the school, my Catholic private school, that I gave one of these older boys oral sex upstairs in the music room. And still, I didn't have any trusted adult to talk to about this. Like, I had to deal with all of that stress and all of that, like, fucking damage to my character and my own, like, self-esteem. I had to deal with all of that on my fucking own. Like, and I really just want anyone who really needs this, any brown girl who needs this, to please learn from my experiences, or at least reflect on them, because I did not have anyone who let me know that boundaries exist, in that there are certain things that you just should not do, because it puts you in a very, very vulnerable and just unsafe and dangerous position. Like, I literally had to deal with that my entire 4th grade year, being a 9-year-old girl, and dealing with the whole entire school having this rumor about me. And then on top of that, there was more boys from that grade that started preying on me, because they literally believed that it was true. And so there was this other boy, and it's almost like all of his friends did the same thing, like gave me a note and tried to ask me out. And I was so freaking dumb at that time that I like didn't ever put any of the pieces together and realize, like, Amina, do you realize, like, they are literally just trying to use you? Like, do you realize that they are literally seeing absolutely no real value in you, but that they just want to get their tickled, like, seriously? At that point in my life, I hadn't even seen a freaking penis unless it was on a freaking screen on a porn site that I had been shown from my cousin or something. Like, seriously, I had not ever physically seen a penis at all, and there was a rumor going around in my school that I had put one in my fucking mouth, in that there are all these little boys who are now coming and preying on me, trying to get the same thing, and that is literally just feeding this rumor. Because now, and then, like, I remember I genuinely had a crush on this guy, and I remember that he had finally started giving me some attention, but this was after the rumor had already started. I should have fucking known. And so he started somehow paying attention to me, and making it seem like, oh, he really, really liked me and all of this. And he was cool, like, he was sweet. But then I had come to find out that he had only ever gave me any attention because his older brother wanted him to get his penis sucked before he reached like 13 or 14 or something like that. And the whole plan was that he would get me to do it and then just break up. And I remember him like getting that information out of his older brother only because I was so heartbroken at the fact that that guy like didn't want to give, like he didn't want to be with me anymore, and that for some reason it was just like he started treating me like I was fucking worthless, and I just wanted to figure out what the fuck why. So I created this like catfish account, and I messaged his older brother. Mind you, I'm doing all of this at 9 years old because I'm so fucking lost, and I'm trying to mend all the pieces together on my own. Even the friends that I have like aren't, they're like, I barely even had friends at that. I wasn't able to go to anyone's house. I wasn't able to really do anything unless it was under the supervision of my mother, although she also at the same time had no idea what was going on in my life. And that I'm trying to keep all of these bad things away from her, and then it's like she only figures out about the things that are an effect of me literally being bullied at school and harassed at school, sexually harassed and bullied at school. All she sees is what it has made me become, but doesn't ever actually try to get to the root of like literally the fucking trauma that I'm going through inside. It's only ever the external plane that she cares about, like my body. Ugh, bro, whatever. So I'm like, I messaged his older brother, right? And I used some picture of this pretty girl that I found on Facebook. And I honestly like apologized to that girl because but I just needed to understand what was going on to me, really. So I messaged him and literally got him to admit that he just wanted his brother to get his penis sucked before he turned like 14, and that was the whole reason why he set him up with me. And oh my God, I never felt so dumb. Like, I literally felt like I was living in a fucking hole or something, and I had went missing and nobody realized it, or nobody cared. Nobody decided to make posters, or maybe they did realize it, but they didn't care enough to make a poster. They didn't care enough to like be like, hey, this girl is missing. Nope, they were just like, oh, she's gone. Wonder where she went, and then went on about their fucking day. Like that's what the entire that span of my life felt like. And then it only got worse because I still at that point hadn't gotten any clear guidance on the male gaze, like getting male attention, and how accepting any form of attention from any male, like especially a male that you're not necessarily attracted to, but that is just giving you attention, that kind of thing, where I didn't understand what my worth was. I didn't understand how men think and how they aren't really focused on any of your actual self and your soul and your heart or your mind or any of those things is at that age that they don't give a fuck about those things. And then even like I remember having this boy who was in freaking high school when I was still young, like in the freaking 4th grade, 6th grade, 5th grade. I remember him hearing the rumor because I like believe he was friends with like one of the brothers of the boys that believed in the rumor. So somehow it got to this boy who literally graduated my school, and he's messaging me trying to get the same thing, and I'm like, yo, what the freak? And so it's really, really, really interesting because then there's this transition that happens when I have to stop going to private school because I guess we can't afford it no more. So I end up transferring to public school. And at this point, we're living in Maryland, but going to school in Virginia. So we're having to do this drive from Maryland to VA every single day. And that already within itself was a lot, because that was the first time I had ever experienced what it was like to be the new girl. And I remember like what that felt like, having people talk about me, not really like having any kind of guidance. Oh my gosh, like fuck, man. I just, please, like, if there's anything that I want to like really get across, is that if you are going to become a parent, like, or more so if you're going to be a mother, like, I think that this is why the older I got, the more obsessed I became with motherhood and wanting to be a mother, because I just feel like it doesn't have anything to do with the physical human that you see, or the physical body that you see and what that looks like, but literally what's creating it and the internal world that that human is living in. And that's what you really need to get to the root of, and what is really going on in there, because I was 100% alone. Like, completely. I had absolutely no counseling, no guidance at that time in my life. Mind you, I had already had experience being molested for an extremely long time in my life. And mind you, this is to an extent still happening while I'm going through this experience with these boys. So while this is happening, I'm still going through some kind of sexual abuse at the same time, from someone who is much older than me, and is getting like away with it to an extent, because no one is paying attention and no one is asking me any questions. So I'm not offering up any information. So it also kind of relates to why any attention that like I was actually getting from any boy my age, I was just accepting, and how that also contributes to that backfire of me having no education of my body or my worth or what it means to even be a woman at all. And so, yeah, I had to grow up really, really fast, as you can tell. And when I think about myself today, and when I get any type of attention from a man, even still today, I have had to learn the value of being my own lover. Like, being my own romantic partner, being my own significant other, and fulfilling that role myself. Because when I wasn't focusing on loving myself, and I wasn't focusing on learning how to be my own like romance, and be my own attention, be my own affection, you know what I mean? Like, when I wasn't focusing on those things, I had almost like a desperate type of energy, a desperate sort of personality, where it puts you in a space where you are more likely to kind of exploit your own sexuality or like, you know, kind of put yourself out there in ways that don't necessarily promote your highest good. Like, for instance, I was modeling a lot. Like, I was modeling like crazy from maybe about like 8th grade. So from like 13, 14 to about like 17, maybe 18. So from like 13, 14 to about 17, 18. And I was doing a lot of modeling, a lot of traveling, meeting a lot of different people, doing a lot of shoots, walking a lot of shows, just going through a lot, while also going to high school and having to keep up my grades, and at the same time having to deal with all of the trauma that I've experienced in my childhood still on my own. But mind you, I was again sort of being exposed in a way when it comes to modeling that did reveal my body, and it did attract a lot of access, attention. It did make people like give me a kind of energy that they wouldn't give, let's say, a woman who isn't modeling half naked, right? And this would translate to the my perception of what is sort of a good, I don't know, response. A good response to my personality or the way that I dress or this or that, because I was literally modeling in ways that showed my breasts, modeling in ways that put me in very, very vulnerable clothing, shooting with male photographers, modeling with male models, modeling with like other women, and doing this in front of large crowds, doing this in a way where I'm being kind of exhibited, right? And at a young age, this does a lot to your brain, right? And then also because the kind of dynamic that I had, the relationship with my manager, was that she was also my mother. And so it created this kind of split where there reached a point where our connection became more manager and less mother. And the mothering aspect of it almost like completely disappeared for me. I mean, it already wasn't really something that I felt like I was getting, this kind of maternal nourishment, because we never really had any conversations about emotional health or mental health or spiritual alignment or like any of the values that I should have, or any of like techniques or ways of experiencing myself that are healthy. And she had no idea what it was like being me. She had no idea what it was like to experience the world that I was going through. She had no idea of my personal life, even though I was literally like next to her 24/7. It was just something that she never asked about. And she had also kind of condemned certain behaviors and like blatantly expressed a disapproval for certain experiences in general. So it was like if I did have a question or I did want guidance, it would be taken in a way that made me seem like I was guilty. And that's how she would respond, like you were guilty. And so I think about the time of modeling where she was so concerned about my sexuality and like me using my physical body, I guess. I don't know. That's why for me, I just had to completely like take a step away from the whole modeling thing when it came to this part of my life, because I'm a teenager. I'm a teenager, okay? And when I'm doing a modeling job, it's okay for my mother to accept that I am a minor and I'm half clothed and I'm getting all of this public attention in a way that is 100% like inappropriate for someone who is my age. But it's okay because it's good for business, right? It's okay because it builds clientele and it makes me a name, right? But then if it has anything to do with my sexuality, it is like I'm a fucking whore if I even have a thought about having a boyfriend. I am just breaking her heart if I even am interested in talking about sexuality or exploring my sexuality, or even understanding what sex is and how is it expressed at all. Like, these are things that I'm still learning at this point in my life, but somehow she's benefiting from like the use of my sexuality but condemning my own personal exploration of it as an individual, as a human being, like, and growing and learning and living in the world. So I think that this eventually I had to like branch off, because we could never come to a like agreement on why I felt neglected or why I felt like I wasn't being seen and like I wasn't being heard and like she didn't care. And I remember like having this conversation with her where I was kind of explaining to her why I sort of ran away. Why I ran away. I literally ran as far as I could. I mean, like, it wasn't without her consent. I literally asked her, could I run away? And then I ran. And I didn't plan on coming back. And she would always try to get me to come back, but I didn't want to because I just knew that if I had stayed there any longer, I would have never learned or gotten the guidance that I genuinely needed, or I never would have been able to be in an environment where I could figure this shit out on my own, because clearly my capacity to grow or figure out how to be a woman, how to mature is taken from me because like it seems like she wants me to stay as a little girl but wants to benefit from who I am as a woman, or more so like profit off of the way people perceive me as a woman, but doesn't want to allow any growth or maturity of the little girl within. But this still gives her power, you know, like this puts her in a more powerful position. But the thing is, like, I need to learn myself. I need to understand a lot of things that I couldn't explore or figure out or even contemplate while in her presence. And so I remember this like conversation that we were having, and I wasn't even alone, actually. My best friend at the time was sitting there like comforting me and heard the entire conversation. And I remember telling her about everything that I basically just said. And at the time I had a boyfriend because I was in 10th grade. So that was the year that I had finally had my first kiss. That was the first time I had ever actually really gotten close enough to a boy that wasn't just flirting, right? Like all of it before was flirting that literally went wrong, like flirting that was completely misguided, okay? And put me in predicaments where my literal like safety and my happiness were at jeopardy. How flirting somehow turned into school rumors and sexual harassment and bullying because I just don't know what to say or how to respond to any male attention, right? And so I remember like telling her everything that was on my chest, right? And at the end, literally, she like asked me about my life today, and I remember saying like, well, I have a boyfriend or something like that, and like talking about like my friends or whatever. And mind you, before that she had completely like denied that anything that I felt was actually valid. And then on top of that, the only actual reaction and the only actual response that I got from her was when I hear from my cousin that she tells my cousin the entire conversation, and she didn't cry or she didn't have any other real response to anything else other than the fact that I said that I had a boyfriend, and that was what broke her heart. And because I had a boyfriend at 16 years old and never had ever kissed a boy up until that point, like that broke her soul. And I'm like, what the fuck? But you literally let me walk naked on this runway in front of all these hundreds of people, but you're mad that I kissed a boy? Like, this is the type of like duality that I had to really overcome, man, I'm telling you. And then like after I had that entire conversation with her about the reason why I didn't want to live with her anymore, and the reason why I didn't want to model, and the reason why I don't feel like our relationship is healthy, why I don't feel like I'm being seen or heard in our relationship, she somehow gets it into her mind that the only reason why I no longer wanted to have a relationship with her was because I'd rather go somewhere where I can have sex with my friend. And my thing is just like, bro, what the fuck? Like, why is that even on your mind? Like, why? That to me was just like a blatant representation that you clearly don't know my character, bro. Like, you really don't know who I am at all. Like, at all. Like, I just sat here right now in this episode and explained a lot of what I have went through in my childhood and how I had to go through a lot of dark shit alone. Like, as a little girl, even my first heartbreak, bro, I'm not even joking. Listen. I loved that little boy so so much as the young girl that I was, or at least I thought I loved him. I don't know, but I felt so deeply for him. I had never felt emotions that strong for someone up until that point. And there came this moment where he didn't feel those emotions anymore. And I remember feeling so crushed. Mainly because at that time in my life, like, I went through this period where, well, I still actually go through this. I would dream about something, or I would dream about like discovering some kind of information about a person, a place, or a thing, and then the next day it would, like, in my waking reality, I would come to discover that exact same thing that I already have found out in my dream. So my dreams sometimes act as like future predictions, right? And so I remember like finding out in my dream that he was talking to another girl, and then I kind of confronted him about it, and he sort of admitted that he wasn't fully invested anymore. And I remember being so hurt. And then, you know what, like, really took the hurt to 10 billion? I freaking played Drake. That's when Views first came out, and I played Redemption on repeat and just cried in the bathroom as silently as I could. And I remember just crying my soul out. And I am the kind of crier, like, I'm the kind of girl where when I cry, you will know. You will be able to feel it in my energy, and you will also be able to see it in my face, because my eyes get extremely puffy, my face gets puffy, my eyes turn red, and just naturally around my eyes, my skin is a little bit lighter than the rest of like my body. So it's evident, like, you can see that I have been crying, you can feel it in my energy. And I remember just crying so hard. And then I remember going into the living room after I had cried and experienced my first heartbreak. Bro, heartbreak within itself is a whole different story, man. Heartbreak is like, I genuinely believe everyone who explains a cause of death as heartbreak. And like, I mean, like, a human being that dies because of heartbreak, I genuinely feel like this is possible, because I literally felt like you can feel your freaking heart tearing in half, and just the pain is so unbearable that I genuinely can see how a person's emotional state can literally cause them to die. I'm not joking. And so I remember feeling that and picking all of the pieces of myself back up. And at that time I was only like 13. And I remember sitting down on the couch and having to pretend like nothing happened. But you can still tell that I was crying, because I didn't want her to know that I liked someone. Mind you, I never even kissed him either. We didn't even have a physically affectionate relationship. It was just like more of a mutual attraction and a mutual feeling of like emotions that were strong, very, very strong. But we didn't ever act on any of it physically. It was just always an expression of these strong feelings that made the connection kind of unique and impactful. And I didn't want her to know that I liked the boy, even though I wasn't even touching him. I wasn't even doing anything. We maybe hugged because that's what human beings do. But like he never touched me in any places that were considered sexual or any of that. And I was still at that time in my life just terrified that she would find out. And so I had to go through my first heartbreak. And literally, when I tell you, I was a wreck for an entire week, a month after that. And then I was literally still experiencing the effects of that heartbreak all the way until the end of high school. I'm not even joking, man, because that's how deeply that heartbreak and my inability to fully cope with it on my own, like how that really, really, really kind of made an impact on my life and my ability to grow and develop emotionally and to feel emotions and understand them, because we didn't ever feel emotions together. We never talked about the emotions that we felt. She never showed me that she felt emotion, and she didn't ever sort of acknowledge the fact that I felt emotions. And so I remember going and sitting on the couch next to her after experiencing my first heartbreak alone in the bathroom, sitting next to her, and it was like she didn't pick up on any of my emotional distress, like at all. And if she had looked me in my face, she couldn't tell that I was going through some kind of emotional pain or emotional struggle, because you could, like, my energy was so low for the next week. I barely spoke, and you could tell I had damn near cried every single day because my heart was broken. And she did not at all once ask me, how are you feeling? Like, the question, how are you, was absent my entire childhood. The only real memory that I have still to this day of her asking me how are you is through a text message after my grandfather died, and I had to learn about it from my absent father, who comes in and out of my life, and she gets on the phone and just pages me over to him, and he tells me that my grandfather died, and literally she texts me, how are you? And that was it. Like, I didn't really get anything more than that. And that was as a 20-year-old. This is what I'm talking about when I am saying how important it is to really know yourself seriously and, like, learn everything that you can about who you are and what it means to be you, what it means to feel your emotions, and asking yourself questions, and really, like, self-love. I think that if I didn't learn anything else, it was self-love, like how to love myself and also how to be my own mother. That as a woman, it is a part of my self-love journey to become my own mother. It is a part of my maturing and growing process and discovery process to learn motherhood and what that means. And that is what I have been spending the last, like, several years. Not even several years. Well, I've spent the last several years mastering it, but I've spent my entire life learning about it, about what a mother is and what a mother isn't, how she is present and how she is absent, how all of her behaviors, her beliefs, her opinions, and her own internal healing, like how that impacts her children. And the thing is, like, I have come to understand that I cannot blame or, like, hold any kind of fault on my mother for any of what I have experienced as a child, but that doesn't mean that I can't feel the way that I feel about it and feel the way that I feel about her as a mother. But as a human being, I also have to understand that her childhood, she didn't have a mother at all. Her mother passed away when she was like 9 or something, where she was really young. She might have been younger than 9, I'm not sure, but her mother passed away, and she is a twin in a group of children that are literally like 9 children, 9 siblings. And she had to go through her childhood and her teenage years doing the same thing that I had to do, pretty much. But it is different for her because her mother wasn't physically there anymore, and her relationship with her father wasn't ideal either. So that's why it's like, I, as a human being, I have understand that, like, beyond the experience that I have of her as a mother, and beyond the experience that I feel like I was gifted as a child, my own perception of myself as a child and my perception of her as a mother, I can come to a separate, almost in a way, conclusion that, like, as a human being, you know, she has had to deal with her own trauma and her own experiences, and that there comes a point in my life where I can't blame her for anything that I am failing to know or that I am failing to understand. But at the same time, I have to give myself grace and allow myself to feel all of the things that I feel, which is also why, like, I have chosen not to, in a way, like, project any more of my own childhood trauma onto her as a mother, even though she has the experiences of me doing that as a child. But I mean, what do you expect? Like, I did not feel loved. But where I am today, I no longer view her as responsible for making sure that I love myself. And that is sort of where I feel like I'm going to bring this to a close. And that's kind of the conclusion that I want, you know, is that you can't leave anyone responsible for teaching you how to love who you are. Straight up, doesn't matter if it's your mammy, your papi, your Grammy, your best friend, your significant other, your dog, anyone. You cannot give anyone that responsibility, and it's also not fair for you to put that responsibility on anyone either, for them to know how to love you, because they are still having to figure out how to love themselves. I find it a lot more liberating to no longer really express to somebody all of the ways that they fail to love me, because that doesn't help or work for the highest good. If I'm being honest, it doesn't teach anyone anything. It just inflicts pain that is in a way vengeful. So I just have completely gotten to this point in my life where I'm like, Amina, like, you are 100% responsible for being your own mother and loving yourself and understanding everything that you can about yourself, because this world will not serve your highest good. You cannot expect the world to do that. That's something you have to be aware of and that you have to daily work towards. So yeah, all right, that's in. This is a pretty deep episode, but I feel so much better, and I'm gonna finish braiding my hair and watching Rick and Morty because that's kind of my daily routine right now, and maybe make like a veggie burger or something. All right, I'm out.